would say the key thing that I've recognized now and what I try to teach people is the metrics of Instagram don't pay our bills unless you are an influencer and you sell your influence, which is a very, very tiny percentage of people.
Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and I am here today with Zach Kenney, a painting company owner and the man behind the ZK Painting Instagram page. So if you're in the painting world, you have probably heard of Zach. If you're not in the painting world, you probably don't even care what we're talking about today, other than just two dudes chatting about life and other things. So first of all, Zach, I met you back at the PCA Expo. It's been a while, but yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm excited for the conversation today. And yeah, how are you doing?
It's great to be here. I'm doing amazing. I'm 2 months into being a father, and it's just been the best experience of my life.
That's awesome. I have to always push back though. Like, is it actually like, is the first 2 months, has it been like legitimately good? Or is it like I'm trying to enjoy it?
I, my wife tells me I'm not supposed to tell people this, but it's just been so awesome and easy. We have an amazingly easy baby. She sleeps like awesome. She's calm. She's chill. Like
Do you remember the advice that I told you that I tell every parent when we were at that restaurant? I'm assuming I told you.
you
I say
did
it to
tell me.
literally everyone that's an expecting parent.
Uh, we talked about it for a while afterwards, but life has been a blur. I have a horrible
So
memory.
all my advice is, and it's kind of a trick because there isn't really advice. It's basically
Oh
don't
yeah,
listen to
don't listen to
anything
everyone
anyone
what they
tells you.
say.
Just
Yeah,
trust
don't
your
listen.
gut. That's my one piece of advice, including me telling you you don't have to listen to me either. But
Which
just
was
like
perfect.
the number of people that are like, oh, make sure you do this or that, whatever. It's like, yeah, just wait and see, because we have 4 kids now, and every single one has been, it's just totally different every time. So, but that's
Yeah,
awesome.
everyone had
The
me
other thing I always tell
prepared.
people is, say that again.
Everyone had me prepared to be just like sleep deprived and miserable, and I was so ready for that and really terrified. And like, God,
Expectations.
yeah, that's Elon
Yeah,
Musk thing, right? Happiness
exactly.
is
Just you were
expectations.
prepared for the worst. Totally. Um, so yeah, that's awesome. I always tell parents that if the goal is like you and your wife survive, which it sounds like you're doing more than that, don't worry about the baby because the baby's going to be fine. And that in this case, it's true. And in cases where you have a tough baby, it still is true that you got to prioritize your own sleep and well being above the child. As crazy as that sounds,
Yes.
um, but anyways, yeah, the number of people that I talk to that for whatever reason people tell them and they just get stressed out, and the anxiety of like you're going to screw something up, or you know, yeah, it's just so stressful with the first one often. So
I will say I am very grateful to have waited till I was 39 years old, and I have a lot of momentum in life and in business, and so like that momentum is carrying through in a way where like everything is easy because like financially secure, my business runs, and like I don't have to do a ton of like put a ton of effort in to keep my business running, and like
mm,
I waited until this would be as easy as it could be.
mm, yeah, that's a great point. There is a I don't know how long have you been married?
Uh, I've been married for like a year, not even.
Okay, because I was going to say I would, one thing that I have heard people say, I don't disagree with you on the kid part, but with getting married, I'm a big advocate of like, you don't know what you're doing, as long as you know you're with the right person. The idea of like waiting to have like the perfect wedding and everything, I'm just like, yeah, just jump in, and you guys are going to evolve and change and grow as a couple. And anyways, but yeah, the
This is my
kids,
second
adding a
marriage,
kid, yeah.
so I
Ah,
figured out a lot in the first one. Where like the second one was a no brainer. I was like, "You're 100% my person, and you're the person I want to have a baby with." And I've never experienced that in my 38 years previous. So yeah, it's just been amazing.
that's awesome. So, fatherhood, your business is going well. For those of the people that don't know you quite as well, give like the snapshot or synopsis of who Zach Kenney is and kind of the recent trajectory of your business and how it's evolved with the social media aspect that's now prevalent.
Yeah. So I would say I'm a lot of things. I'm a person who I did not have a lot of success for a lot of my life. I was really struggling for a long time. I was a pretty bad employee. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I struggled at life for a long time. And I started a painting business. Like I started working for myself, really out of desperation. I was not very employable, and I needed to do something. And so I I knew how to paint. I had painted for a long time. I had a passion for the craft of painting, and so I was like, "Hey, guy, like my friend's dad, like, will you pay me to I'll paint your flip house for $15 an hour, and we can smoke weed in the attic." And like, my life sucked, and it was very much like that's where I started. I loved the craft of painting. It's how I fed my ego. I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this trade that I'm kind of embarrassed to do, at least I'm going to like push the level of it, and I'm going to study, and I'm going to try to be better every day. And I did that for a long time. And so I would say now I'm a recovering craftsperson turned business person. I learned that craftsmanship is great and I love it, but it doesn't necessarily pay the bills. And then many times it actually gets in the way of running a good business, being very passionate about the work. And so and then I started on Instagram about 6 years ago. I was desperate. I had no work. I wanted to do this super high level painting that we do today. Actually, I wanted to do it. I knew it existed, but like none of my clients would pay me to do it. So I started on Instagram. My ex was like, "You should start on Instagram." I didn't like social media, but I did it, and then it was a game, and I tried to make my score go up, and try to grow followers and like play this game, and like I did that for a while, and I had nothing else to do, so I got kind of good at it. And then I realized someone asked me like, "Why are you doing this?" And I was like, "To make my score go up." What do you mean? And so I sort of made a decision to like change my focus on social media to drive revenue to my business. And when I did that, it changed everything. My life has completely changed. Everything about my life is different and way better because I decided to harness social media to drive revenue to my business.
How does that like what's the like some of the core shifts mentally or like pillars of like how you think about it the way you used to versus what you do now?
So like this it's taken me years to sort of like evolve my thinking and then to be able to articulate it. But because I've tried a lot of things and failed a lot of things, I would say the key thing that I've recognized now and what I try to teach people is the metrics of Instagram don't pay our bills unless you are an influencer and you sell your influence, which is a very, very tiny percentage of people. What we care about is making the sales process easier when we meet with the client, and being sticky, right? If someone gets referred to you using your social media and they follow you, just don't f that up and you won't lose a client or a
Mm.
potential client. And then you can speak to them forever. And so creating content that doesn't like it's not sexy. It doesn't get a lot of like. All my clients, we've done millions and millions of dollars of paint jobs from Instagram. I would say none of those clients ever liked or commented on a post, right? So if I was using the metrics of Instagram to say like, am I doing a good job or not? Am I getting a lot of views and a lot of likes and a lot of comments and engagement? Those metrics don't drive revenue. And the types of content that you create that drive revenue is often the opposite of content that would drive a lot of views.
Mm. Give me like in the I mean cuz your painting channel it's good. Like you've got some really you obviously have an eye for even just slicing or like when you're doing time lapses or how you're sequencing things. So I would say you are still strategic, but
So I'll
is
tell
it
you, I do there's two different types of social media content. Well, there's really three, but there's two. There's for revenue, there's two. There's the influencer style, and there's the drive revenue to your business, make the sales process easier, boots on the ground, real people in your life buying because they follow you on Instagram. I do both. So I've become an influencer. I get paid to create content for brands, and it's a revenue stream for my business. So I actually have an incentive to grow my following and my engagement. So I create viral videos, or attempt to, and I've sort of got a, like, I can buy lottery tickets that often turn into viral videos, and those are a different type of content. I don't recommend anyone try to do that type of stuff. It's really it doesn't. It's a very, very tiny percentage of my revenue. Um, I just don't. It's what everyone thinks about social media as, but it's not very lucrative unless you get lucky.
And I would say it's like for the top echelon of content creators are going to be able to dabble in that at all. And what you're saying is there's this other game that anyone can play in any town across the country or the world. You can benefit from thinking about the way you're thinking about driving revenue.
Yeah, and it's honestly it's the polar opposite of anything you ever read about or learn about or listen to about social media marketing. And so I've tried to help people and tell people and spread this idea, because when I was studying social media and when I go to conferences and I hear people talk, it is all about this game of optimizing for the metrics of Instagram. And it's very hard to go optimize this other way, which is like, what is it like? How do I make a potential buyer want to buy from me, from my content? That's a very, and then how do
I have an idea. Tell me if you're down with this. I want to share my screen, and I know this is a podcast, but we have the video on Spotify, or you can watch on YouTube. But are you down to just kind of explain with your own channel?
Sure.
This is what you're talking about when we like click on a post and be like, here's a post that is not, and we can play the video or whatever.
Sure.
Looks like you do a lot of video. Is it pretty much
I do a
all
lot of
videos?
video. It depends. So I go back and forth with like what my intention is for my social media. There was a phase I didn't post for like the last month and a half. I got burned out. Not burned out. I just like my
And you had
focus
a
wasn't
baby.
there. I had a baby, and like it didn't excite me anymore. It's social media is a very it's a powerful thing, and it does a lot of crazy things to our brains, and like I have a love-hate relationship with it. And like I'm not a content consumer anymore. I really don't spend any time looking at content on social media. I create stuff sometimes, but I'm very much like over social media is like it's not cool. Like for a long time, I just wanted to like get my numbers to go up and be like cool social media guy. Now it's like it's one tool that we use to drive revenue to our company, but like that's kind of it. So if you were to look at any posts that are non-video posts, and actually even like that video, that one that's right ahead of you with me, my face in the
This
middle,
one?
that one right there, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a video I made because I can make video fairly easy, but it's really that is explaining to people, like potential clients, like what it's like to have us working in your house. Right? Like this video is not going to go viral. It is not. And most of what I try to encourage people to do is not even do video, just do photos and write great captions. But this shows that we understand how to work in a home and not make a mess inside and clean the air. So it's very much like, hey, client who's worried about painters being in your multi-million-dollar condo spraying really smelly stuff, like, hey, we got this. Like we know how to treat the air in a way that you don't have to worry about it. This was never going to perform great by the metrics of social media.
Makes sense, right? And then you have an example of like the
And
other
to the
side?
left of it, to the left of it is a video that is just there for views.
Right.
It's a satisfying video. I don't even, I didn't even, I don't think I wrote a very long caption. Yeah. I just sort of mail in the caption.
How many squats does it take to paint a door?
Yeah. It's just purely clickbait. Sometimes these will get millions of views. Sometimes they don't. It's like a lottery ticket. but that's surely not going to drive sales. But if you keep going
Right.
down, there's generally more of the not like that one up and to the right. Yeah, that
This
one.
one, the photo.
Any of the photo ones, they're always going to be educating my client. So this is
Mm,
a project where we were twice the price of anybody else who bid the project. And because we're going to do twice the amount of work at a much higher level, we're going to meet the client's real needs. But like it was a very intensive masking to do what we did.
right.
And so I wrote an incredibly detailed caption that describes why and what we're doing. And it's hopefully a layperson reads that and it speaks to them, right? I'm
Mm,
not making that piece of content for other painters. I am trying to
mm.
build the trust of a potential client so that they understand why my price is more than everybody else's.
Yeah, I like that. And so when you so let's say for like customer, I'm assuming that it's rare. Well, rare for someone not to find you on Instagram and also not be referred by a client because you're not focused on like SEO, correct? Like you're
I've
not
never
trying to
got a
get
job from
Google
Google in my
business. Yeah. So, and that's great because what I was going to say is you're having people that are finding you from Instagram, and then probably the other, I would guess, even more prominent
most of it's
is
the referral.
yeah, referrals. And so when they're referred, do you know like how often are people coming to you without ever looking at your Instagram versus getting referred and then looking you up on Instagram before they
Maybe
talk to you?
10% of my clients have never seen my Instagram. Maybe
Wow. Okay.
10%.
So you're getting a ton of referrals and everyone immediately goes and looks you up.
Yeah, that's the vehicle for the referral. And that's what I think that's where the revenue for all small businesses can come. You just get your people today who you work for to follow you, and then you get them to refer you to people using your social media. It's far stickier than a phone number or even a business card, right?
Hmm. So you're saying like you painted my house and then you say like, hey, you could follow me on Instagram, and then you make posts that are like, hey, I'm running a contest or refer your friends, or you don't even do that. You just
No,
continue to make
I think
content.
there's like two things. You need a system for how you get people to follow you, and like that is like in real life. I don't mean like how do you get strangers on the internet to follow you. I mean how do you get anyone who you interact with in your business to follow you? Because those are the people we care about. People who live in your town or who are your potential clients. We want them to follow you. So you kind of have to develop an elevator pitch of like why would you want to follow me, and it should be about them. Like if you follow me, you can like this, and this. These are the things because we're creating content for other people. It has nothing to do with for me, right? I need to add value to Miss Jones. So she's like, I'm really like I'm glad I follow you because now I know more and I can make better decisions about painting. Or I can be inspired. Or maybe discounts come occasionally. Um, I've had people who like they have rain discounts. So like 2 days before they know it's gonna rain, they'll post a story that says like 20% off if you book today for next week's rain. So my painters can paint inside. So like just like developing a elevator pitch for why someone should follow you. Because once they do, we know they're probably not going to unfollow, and then we can talk to them. And then the question is, what are we saying to them? And everyone can do case studies of just like, Miss Jones called me, she wanted this done. We use these things to get this outcome, right? Any business, like you have people who you've served who like you. So case studies are a great thing because people can read a case study about a client you have, and then put themselves in the shoes of that client and go like, oh, maybe they'll do this for me. You can answer all of the sales questions. So like, what are the major questions you get from in the sales process? Our content should answer those questions.
When
And
you answer those, are you also putting them on your website or anywhere else, or it's all 100% housed inside Instagram?
I think for me, I don't have a lot of bandwidth, so I use social media and Instagram, and it's super easy. But like, this is just general marketing, right? Like, marketing should answer your clients' questions before they have them, and let them do all their research before they ever pick up the phone. So that's, I think the social media gets like seen through this like different lens for some reason because of this influencer crap. But like, social media is just another marketing tool. And so I don't see that your Instagram should be treated different than your website.
Mm. Have you read the book or heard of the book They Ask You Answer?
Yeah, I saw him speak at a social media conference once too. Amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, my summary of it would be, it's basically the idea of that's what the internet is for. Social media, an extension of that, is just you need to answer the questions that your clients have in a better way than anyone else has ever answered that question. And that's from the SEO standpoint, if you're trying to rank highly on Google. But on Instagram, I'm curious, when you answer a question and it gets buried in your posts, right? Or do you continue to answer the same question and just continue to take stabs at it?
So that's where highlights come in. Highlights are a key um, thing on Instagram. And I will also tell you that, like, again, I have built a ton of momentum, and I do some consulting with I do consulting with brands for this stuff. And like, if you're starting from scratch, and like, one of my big weaknesses is my highlights. They're not up to date anymore, but at least there is some categories there. The idea is that you have a system as you create content, that it gets categorized. And if you look at the top, I have all my categories. So if you're looking for cabinet repainting, you don't have to go through all of my content. You can just look at the cabinet repainting section, and it'll curate. You're curating your feed for people, because yeah, I have hundreds and hundreds of posts, and no one's going down to look at my 300th post.
Does Instagram tell you like what percentage of views comes from your highlights? Or I
I
guess it
don't.
just would
So
tell you
I
how
will tell
many.
you, I don't ever look at the metrics on Instagram. Like, it's just not a thing. I purposely don't do it. Like, I just don't care how many people have looked at a thing or done a thing. Those metrics are not the metrics I care about. I
Mm,
want to get people to, so every time anyone ever calls me, the first thing I say is, "How did you hear about us?" And hopefully Instagram is that thing they say. And it usually is. And if it's not, I direct people to Instagram, because you can really get an idea of who we are and what we do through our content.
mm. Liquid metal. I'm like, what? I didn't even know that was a thing. Is
It's
that like
wild.
it's actually like
It's powdered metal,
powdered
bags of
metal
powdered
inside of
metal,
a paint or epoxy or
clear
something?
coat. Yeah,
Wow, interesting.
it's a wild product.
That reminds me of there was a uh, back when I had an internship in college at Lockheed Martin. This was 12 years ago. They had 3D printers for that. They were, this would have been really cutting edge 12 years ago, but metal 3D printers, and it would have powdered, like, aluminum or steel or whatever, and then a laser would like basically weld essentially this powder together, and they could make ridiculous, like, the thing that I remember seeing was for making grenades, and they could make, instead of like a grenade that just had a bunch of like shrapnel in it that could be lopsided or like, disperse at a random trajectory, they made, if you can imagine, like a bunch of little steel balls that were attached like on each, like in a square type of grid, with a little fine piece of metal to the next ball, and then the next ball and the next ball. So it's just like a grid of little BBs essentially, and it was all completely spaced intentionally around the payload or whatever is going to explode. So when this grenade blew up, it like would, you would have like every 1 foot in a grid on the wall, just BBs completely like in the entire space, just like mass. Obviously this is intended for you want to hurt every single person in the room. It's really interesting to discuss on a painting podcast. But the point being that the metal powder
Something I've never thought of.
used for multiple things. And that's also why I ended up not staying in the defense industry, because I was like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing what? So anyways, yeah. So what else? What are the other, you mentioned the, I guess I have a question of which now what would you say if I'm going to play the skeptic of like, it's easy for you to say, oh, now I focus on revenue and I don't worry about the metrics because you now have the metrics solved.
Yeah.
If I'm actually, uh, does the, how does this play out? Or I'm sure you've probably have it firsthand experience with people that are like starting from zero. How does it work for someone that's got like 0 followers today or 10 or 100 or whatever? You still would say do the same exact thing where you're just trying to document, this is how we work, this is what we do. And then you've got like your, like, let's say that spray, the mobile spray booth type of post where you're like just walking through a job live. You're doing like case studies where it's like an after photo or maybe a before and after photo saying Mrs. Jones wanted this and this is how we solved it. And then any other like templated style posts that you really like.
Um, yeah, I think it's case studies. It's frequently asked questions. Um, there's some like education stuff of just like our capacities and demonstrating expertise in your capacities, like whatever it is that you do, like show that like you do it. And then like I think the key thing that I try to get everyone to do is to have a blueprint, like write out a framework. If you don't have a document, I don't care who, like I evolved that document in my head because I was doing all the content and I had a lot of free time, and I was evolving that document in my head of like, what are we doing? How do we do it? What are we trying to say? All those things. And that's like, if you look at all the successful influencers, I would say like anyone who has a large following on social media is incredibly intentional about it. Like these people are not, it's not a fluke. It's just not like all the big influencers that I know are incredible. Like they're science, they're like making spreadsheets and A/B testing content, and like it is wildly like intentional. And I would say all social media should be that way. Whether you're trying to be an influencer, you should know what is your goal for your content, and then you should be incredibly intentional about how you go about making that content. Because the bar for creating content is so low, it's so easy to put a piece of content out. People oftentimes just do. Like, oh, today I woke up and like I felt like doing this, so I'd like do this, and then like I'd do this. And if the accumulation of that is when you go to someone's feed, it's very incoherent. It's kind of all over the place. And people don't trust. The whole point of social media is to build trust and to drive sales for most of us. And people don't trust lack of consistency, right? The person who shows up kind of different all the time, no one trusts that guy. Like people want to see consistency. All the big, anyone who's doing great on social media is very consistent in their messaging. Like you know what you're getting when you go to this feed. And the best way to do that for someone starting is you got to have a document that says, what are we trying to say? Like, what are we special at? What do we want everyone to know about us? Right? You got to have a few things that make your company special. And then you got to figure out how can I highlight those things? Like, what are the different ways I could demonstrate? Like, I have a really large painting company. Like, I have clients who have like large companies, they have scale. Most painting companies are not big. So people do not assume that you have a large team. So you need to like demonstrate your competitive advantages. I can get your job done really fast because I have a really large team. Well, there's a bunch of types of content we could make that would highlight the fact that you have a large team. And like when you make that framework of like, here's what I'm trying to say, then when you go to create content, we try to like batch create content, like at least create the ideas. So you're going to brainstorm like, what are 15 types of posts I could make that would highlight the idea that I have a large team. And then you're going to intentionally create, you're going to like make little like Okay, the post is going to be a picture of a bunch of guys on the side of a house with a bunch of ladders painting a house. The caption's going to say, "We have a large team, so we can get the job done really fast." Whatever, rough draft. And you're just going to go through like that. And then you're going to go create the content after you've created the rough draft. That type of intentionality, at the end of the day, if you were to scroll the feed, it feels different. It builds trust and it feels different than like, oh, I got some pictures, let me see how I can try to like put a square peg into a round hole and make this photo say this thing. Intentionality will always build trust. It will always build a better page than, and it's just way easier. Like, most people start on social media, they got this like, they're gung-ho, I know I'm supposed to do this, they start creating content, they suck, like we all suck when we started something. They don't get positive feedback and then they stop. And if you go to their feeds, their stuff is like all over the place. You're like, what is this? This is crazy. And so the antidote to that, which even the people, the companies that I've consulted with and given frameworks to, they like, it's not an easy thing. You're creating a new habit. Like, to create content it's a job. Like, it's not easy.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
curious, to what extent have you taken AI and like legitimately what I want to do is take the transcript of this conversation, put it into AI, and then say the portion where Zach's talking about how someone should be intentional with their content. Can you extract like a list of 20 post topics and then like describe the photo that I would need to take for each one of the post topics? Have you
It's wild.
done that at all?
Zero. I've thought
We'll have
about
to
AI
try
zero.
after the call. Well, it's going to take a while to process and everything, but I'm genuinely, that's just like everything nowadays. I'm like, how, like, you don't, are you saying that you don't use like Chat GPT or anything? Have you ever like send one prompt at all or asked a question of any kind?
Yeah, I have it on my the button on my iPhone that I can push is ChatGPT, and I can
But you
ask
don't
the
use it
question.
often?
No. So I've had a lot of my clients ask me that, like, "Oh, can I use ChatGPT to like do all this stuff for me?" And I would say no. I don't think that's a good idea, generally speaking. If you can't do this without ChatGPT, you can't do it with ChatGPT. Like, the point is, we're trying to make a documentary of our company. Like, a documentary is like, you just put a camera on what you're doing. Like, it's not a movie. There's no script. You don't need to like do it. You don't need to make it up. Like, at the end of the day, like, the theory would be, right, we've built a business that's so good that we want our grandmother to hire us if she was our ideal client. Like, we add real value in the market. We're a good business. So if that's the case, we just needed people to understand what we do and see how we do it, and then they would want to hire us, right? Because we're the best, or we're really good. We add value. So, like, good marketing is just like, in social media marketing is just like, here's a documentary of our company. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're doing. Here's why you would like it. Here's what we're doing. Here's why you would like it. So if the owner, and so if everyone I work with, like, and everyone I talk to, like, the people who own or run the company, they need to be the last, like, they need to have the say on what that caption says and what that content is. You cannot farm this out to somebody without paying an absolute fortune to a massive company who's going to come in and spend an extended period of time with you and your team, figure out who you are, and maybe then be able to write content for you, right? Unless you're Coca-Cola or Pepsi, or like a large company who can hire a real marketing firm who spends millions of dollars, who's going to come in and be the voice of you. To get someone else to be the voice of you is a wildly difficult thing. So it's so much easier to be like, to just learn how to to say what you're already doing.
So
If that makes
what
sense.
it does, can you give me like just three topics for posts? Like this, what, when you're saying, like, I'm trying to break this down into, you've got a topic, then you've got a caption of what you're going to say, and then it's like, and then the photo that I need to take is going to be something like
It's
this.
not that important.
Not
The
that.
photo's not that important. Because
Okay.
I want you to think of social media so differently. Like I want you to think of social media as someone who is interested in buying what you sell is on your page now. That's it. It has to start with your understanding we are making content for someone who's in the market for what we do. And they get to our page. What do they see? That is so different than like, oh, some stranger on the internet's going to like stumble upon me and like, no, no, no. We need to build a feed that anyone who would be our potential client goes there and gets their questions answered. It builds trust with them, and then they want to buy. And then in our real life, we need to figure out ways to get the people who might want to buy from us to go to our social media.
And so, what would for a painting company? What are some things that you
For a
think would
painting
be?
company, it's super easy. It's case studies all the way. So if you do interior painting, tell me about Miss Jones and what she called you with. She called you, she wanted her interior painted, but she has cats and she was really worried about the cats getting out. And so you did this and this, and then you did these things, and you painted the house, the cats didn't get out, and she was thrilled. Now, if I'm Miss Johnson and I have like dogs or I have another thing or whatever, I have some issue, I read that and I'm like, oh, these guys, like, they could probably solve my problem. They're adaptable and they care and they're smart. And like just telling the story of what you've been doing. Like, I did this today. We did this today. We did this today. And like doing it in a way that you have to understand who you're talking to. So you have to remember you're talking to someone who's in the market for a painter. Just talk to those people. All the other people will never buy from you. We don't care about them. So what are the things like I talk to people all the time, like talk to your salespeople. What are like the 10 things that they get asked all the time? What are clients' main concerns? All right. How long is it going to take to start this project? So the first thing I do with most companies that are most of the people I work with are like professional companies. So the first thing I say is like, we need to make a post about every step of your sales process, every step of the process of working with your company. From the time I want to reach out to you to the time I finish the job and I pay you the final payment, and what does the warranty look like? And there's probably 15 steps I could break down a post. So just a post about how to reach out to your company, right? It's boring as hell. Make a post about what are the ways, if you want to do business with us, what are the 3 ways you can, there's an inquiry form, link is in the bio. Here's a phone number and here's an email. If you do those, if you reach out to us, here's what's going to happen. Tiffany from our office is going to reach out to you within 24 hours. You will get this will happen. And like, just make a post about of how to reach out to you. And then you're going to make a highlight and you're going to put that post up there as step 1, and you're going to call it our process. So step 1 is here's how I get a hold of you. After I get a hold of you, when Tiffany reaches out, she's going to schedule an estimate with you. She's going to go through a series of questions. She's going to schedule the estimate, and then Bob's going to show up to do the estimate. And then there's another post. When Bob shows up to do the estimate, here's what's going to happen. Blah, 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 blah. This is incredibly boring content. But if I'm Miss Johnson and I'm thinking about buying a paint job and you walk me through every step of your process because you're a professional company, right? And that sets you apart from everybody else. Now I'm going to want to buy from you and I'm going to feel way more comfortable buying from you. And it's that type of content of just like, first, just tell me what is the process of dealing business with you. When the job starts, what do I expect? I have no idea. Maybe I've never hired a painter or I hired a really crappy painter. And if you're a real professional company, like when John shows up to start the job, he's going to introduce himself. He's going to ask you these series of questions. He's going to set up over here. He's going to give you photos at the end of the day. Whatever your process is for your company. The thing about social media is it makes you a way better company. Because when you start putting a camera on everything you do, you start to realize like, oh wait, I could probably improve here. I can probably improve here.
So I'm going to show you. I have because you don't use. I'm the guy that's obsessed with this stuff. So tell me if this is surprising or not. But I just was as you're chatting. So I put in like a pretty long prompt here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So like, I want to make social media plan for a client of ours that is a painter. Can you come up with a content, blah, 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 topics like case studies, other common questions. So then it's, this part's kind of whatever, just giving you some ideas. The reason why I would say, like you said, if I don't remember how you phrased it, if you can't do this without Chat GPT, then you're not going to be able to do it with it. I would say I would disagree slightly in that the thing that I think is so powerful about Chat GPT is that for someone that's like, I don't know where to even begin. Like, I'm just struggling thinking of like, what do my clients want to know? Like, so it gave, I asked specifically for a topic, a description, and then a photo of what I would need to capture. And again, is this like perfect? No, but it's going to give you at least something. But what I think is better actually is my second attempt here was I said, I want to make a post for each of the milestone in the customer journey and explain what is going to happen along the way. This one I think is better, but again, to me, it's just like super helpful to have a like, oh, that is actually a milestone or an event that maybe we should as a business put more effort into, like initial consultation. Step number 2 is a color selection. Step number 3 is surface preparation. Then the painting begins. Then there's quality inspection. Then there's a walkthrough. And I, what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it is, it's a great, like, we have a let's say 70% done thing, and now you would be an idiot if you thought that you could just copy and paste and call it good, right? Like, that's definitely not what you should do. But as far as like getting a framework of like, okay, what should I even be thinking about, then I could look at this and be like, actually, we have another step in between 5 and 6, and that's actually, whatever. So, but I feel like
This
this.
is awesome.
What's that?
I think when I tell people that, it's people who have already hired me to build them the framework,
Mm.
and they want to use AI to make their life easier after that. So
Oh
if
yeah,
you're
like
gonna do
how
this on your own,
you can't say like, if you're saying this, I would 100% agree. Like, now create me an AI generated photo that I can use in my post. You're missing the
and
point.
like make me do all
Yeah,
the other work for me now.
yeah,
But this is brilliant. I mean, it's actually really impressive to see. Um, but yeah, I think this is a great way of this is gets you started.
yeah. The other thing that I don't know uh, if you've never done this before, it would be a little bit of a project to do this, but I do know also that the AI models that you build, you could, like, what one thing that would be interesting, this would be like for a VA to do. And now, a quick word from our sponsor, which is Boolean Review. Boolean is a review software that my wife and I own, and we sell this software to home service businesses. So I know there are many different people that listen to this podcast, but if you know someone, an electrician, an HVAC business, a painting company, maybe a coffee stand, someone that is providing service to customers and get found online by customers, we would love to talk to them. This is a review software that is the highest converting review software in the home service space in particular. And if you're wondering what that means, if you have 100 clients in your business, the typical business gets between 1 to 2% of those customers. So for every 100, they would get one person or two people to leave them a review on Google. Other review softwares get between 3 and 5%, and the Boolean review software gets 20% of your customers to leave you Google reviews. And these are fantastic Google reviews with lots of words, keywords that are going to help with SEO, pictures, stories, the names of your employees. So if you want to learn more, check out booleanreview.com. And now back to the episode. But you could go copy, like, here's all of Zach's posts, the text of the post. Just like dump in like 200 of them, right? And then you could basically say, this is the structure or the type of the way I would like to talk. And then you put in your topics of like, these are the things I want to do, but I want my post to sound like me, if that makes sense. um, and then it, again, I feel like for you using it to refine or like brainstorming and then refining is the part where I feel like it's a huge time saver that people, I feel like, are missing. The idea that it's just going to like run your marketing for you and magically get you leads, that's not going to happen. But if you use it right, you could turn a project that might have taken you a whole day into something that takes an hour. You're like, hey, I've got a plan. Now I'm going to go work the plan.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's powerful if you can use it. But I
Yeah.
think like the real point is that I want people to understand is just like I think it's when you see social media through this different lens,
Mm-hmm.
it of like if I was going to use it to drive revenue, how would I do it? Let's start there. And
Yeah.
like then let's just assume that only the people who are going to buy from us ever that are we only ever create content for people who would buy from us.
Mm.
I think that's a huge jump in and of itself when we see social media.
Right.
Because most of what we're doing is optimizing for the positive feedback loops that Instagram gives us, which are likes, views, comments. And then when you go out into your daily life or when you see your friends and family, they tell you, like, oh my God, they give you positive feedback about your posts. And I would say for almost all businesses, those metrics aren't metrics we want to optimize for.
Mm.
But it's all anyone thinks about when most people think about when they think about social media.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Any other key takeaways before we head into our wrap up questions?
Um, I think the things I always say are just like have a plan, have some faith that it will work. Like I have people with 1,000 followers who've done $500,000 of paint jobs. Like when you think about it, you just don't need that many followers to get real revenue
Mm.
in any business. And like, yeah, I just think have a plan, have some faith, and like this is a network effect. Like if you get good at it, it has an exponential growth curve.
Mm.
And like that is a powerful thing to spend time getting good at. Some things like it's just not that worth it. But when you have a essentially very low cost to no cost exponential growth curve on your sales process, on leads and sales, like that's a wild thing.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, I'm so like, this could be a really dumb project, but I'm tempted to something that sounds fun and it could end up being like not that useful, but this is just where my mind goes with all this stuff. Consistency is like one of the most important things that you talked about, which I completely agree with. And I feel like the other thing is that you're just documenting. That's the goal, is just documenting. It's like, what are we doing today? And anytime you're doing a job, there's so many random things that you could make or like, that you could document in any given day. But my thought is have AI assist you with coming up with like 100 days of content, like topics. So just for a typical painting company, here's the topics, maybe a rough description of like what you could say, and then like take a photo that highlights blank, right? And then you put that into a system. I would like say Airtable because that's where I do most of my automating of things. And then you have that system text you daily, like on weekdays, that's like, hey, today's post is this. So just like, so you've made the plan, it exists on your computer, whether or not AI made it or not. You know what I mean? Like you have a plan that's in a spreadsheet of like, here's what I'm going to do. The hardest part that anyone's going to struggle with is actually executing on the plan. So I'm thinking of like, how do you support or improve the likelihood that you're going to stick to the plan? Is you build out the framework so then it's just a nudge every day. It's like, hey, today's post is this. Now go take that photo, and then either
I think
post it
that's something
yourself or
I need to
whatever.
incorporate because I will say one of the interesting things that's happened with I've worked with about 15 companies now is and I'm giving them like it's an under 2 page document of just like do this super simple. There's a 14 to 20 step process to creating a post after you do your you do your brainstorming and like it's a step by step. Just do this, follow this every time. I guarantee you will drive revenue. And the execution on this is incredibly low.
Oh
Like,
yeah, it's the consistency. That's the
if I'm
hardest part
looking
of
at
anything.
people, I'm like, wow, this is, I've consistently blown away as it's been happening. It's just like, and sometimes people stop posting completely.
Yeah.
I'm like, and so one other thing one thing I would like to touch on because of this, what we just described. I don't think posting, like, cadence to your posting is not important. If you post one great post per week, that is so much better than 5 posts per week. Like, because we don't care about the algorithm. If you want to become an influencer, there is a hack that if you post every single day for over 6 weeks straight, the algorithm will give you a boost. That's real. We don't care about the algorithm. So if it takes you a while to create posts, it just means that it's just going to take you a little bit longer to have a great feed that's going to drive you revenue.
Mm.
Like, that's really your only pressure, is like, the sooner I get 30, 40 great posts up, the more then I look like legit. We make a great bio, like all the things. But like, there's no need to post every single day. And that
Right.
that that like that pressure is not helpful. And I think I run into a lot of people who feel like they're supposed to be posting a lot. And it's like, no, dude, I don't care. I'd much rather you post 30 great posts and have it take you a year to make them, because then at least next year you'll have a foundation of people. When people go to your feed, they're going to want to buy because they trust you and your stuff's good. You've just been putting out mediocre stuff. Like, think about the feeds that you follow where like they just post too much, and you're like, I'm out of here. Because again, the thought process is Miss Jones is looking for a painter. She goes to your page and she starts to do homework and reading your stuff and scrolling you and looking into you deeply. These are the people we want to make content for. They've given you their attention. We don't need to capture their attention. They've already given it to us.
Do you recommend that people do any sort of boosting to get their posts seen?
Never. That is, anyone that does paid ads will tell you boosting is just a giant scam. Like, if you want to hire a paid ads person, I think that's the thing that makes a lot of sense. I don't think hiring out your organic social media is ever a good idea unless you have 100K minimum to spend per year. But hiring out Facebook ads and Instagram ads is definitely worth it, because boosting is just burning money.
Because I was going to say what I have heard, and I used to be in marketing deeply, running a marketing company, and I haven't done this for over 2 years now. But I do know that at one point the idea was that the statistic I'd heard was less than 1% of your followers ever see any of your content.
I think it's like 20% unless you become like a huge influencer. I think that the number's higher if you have 800 followers, um, because you're going to get a lot of engagement with those people. But again, we're not looking for people to find us on their feed. We're looking for people to go to our page. And so I would say, like, the second step is you build a great page, right? The bio is like bullet points that say what you do special. It's incredibly digestible. The highlights are great. The content answers all my questions. Right? It's a great feed. You can then start to go outbound messaging to potential leads, right? If you work for general contractors or architects or designers or any, like, whoever your chicken is that lays your, like, the chickens, right? And like, they give you work or they refer you. Any referral partners, because homeowners, you can't send DMs to homeowners. You don't know who they are, but you can send messages to whatever companies. If you send a lot of my revenue came from sending messages to builders and architects and designers, and just like sending an intentional message saying, I think I could add value, blah, blah, blah. Most of them ignore you, but occasionally they're like, yeah, I'll take a meeting. Because what do they do? Anyone who's ever sent you a message, the first thing they do is go, and any message you've ever received, you go look at who is this person. And when you go there, if it's a very clear, concise, I can understand who this person is, it's not a cold call
Yeah. Do they
anymore.
look scammy? Do they have one post and their profile was made 5 minutes ago? Like, obviously, that's more suspicious than like, oh, look, it's a legit painting company.
But you sure don't need 10,000 followers to be taken seriously. You need a really great feed.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. So, what are your 3 book recommendations for us?
Uh, by by far my favorite business book I've ever read, the most impactful, I would say, is a book called Understanding Michael Porter. It's Michael Porter is a seminal academic in the business world, and his stuff is incredibly dense and really hard to read. And so somebody wrote a book like breaking his stuff down, and even that's very very dense. But it's he coined the term competitive advantage. Like it's about like macro, like having a business plan and like understanding what is your competitive advantages, and like really looking at like a 50,000 foot view of your business plan and what are you doing and how are you doing it better than everybody else, in a really interesting way. I've had to read it 4 or 5 times before I could like give presentations on it and like really understand it. But essentially, it comes down to like trade offs. Like great, like profit is made through trade offs, not serving some group so you can serve some other group more efficiently, and then stacking trade offs to build a business that has real competitive advantage in the market, i.e., a higher than average profit market.
So you're saying stacking the trade-offs together in an optimal way. That reminds me of a cardboard box company that I met at this one random conference I was at. I was talking to a sales rep from this. Literally, they make cardboard boxes, and one of their clients is Amazon, and then they also do a bunch of like food service, like just boxes that ship groceries to stores and things like that. And they said that Amazon, they actually lose like 2 cents or it was some fraction of a dollar. They're losing money on every box that Amazon buys from them because and Amazon, talk about just crazy power move. Amazon does this with all of their suppliers and everything. So it's literally Amazon is getting their suppliers to lose money because Amazon's ordering so much volume that the having Amazon as a client allows this cardboard box company to actually be able to justify having the equipment and the high tech like investment in their facility and their production systems to be able to make all their money on the mid-level or small players that need to order 5,000 boxes or 10,000 boxes. So they make their margins on those, and then it's basically break even, but at a slight loss with Amazon, which is like it's crazy. So anyway, it's like stuff like that is interesting. And you said like serving this customer so that you can serve these ones better, or maybe you're doing this type of project because it leads to this, which is your high margin thing or whatever. But that's
Yeah, in the
really
book they
interesting.
use trucking companies. Like I think small businesses, we suffer from this thing of like we're just small, and it means like our decision making doesn't have to be as great because a 0.2% change in something doesn't really seem
Right.
like a lot. But like if you were to think about like so they use these three publicly traded trucking companies, like large trucking companies, or like any large company, like outworking the competition is not a strategy, right? It is just at scale, it's a laughable thing to say, we're going to have better people or we're going to work harder. Like, no, like if you scale anything at a certain point, everyone's kind of got the same group of people to hire from. You can't outwork, like, these things don't make you money. Like, better people and more work ethic. Like, no, it's like, deciding to like we're gonna specialize in short haul things, and so we're gonna say no to these other things, but we're gonna optimize all of our things for short hauls. So I don't know what, I forget how it works, but like at the end of the day, one trucking company, they all did about the same revenue, and one did it with like 4x the net profit at a multi-$100 million company. The only way you do that is by like having a business plan. It's not about people or execution. It's about your plan, stacked thought, stacked efficiencies in a way that made it more profitable at the bottom line.
Love that.
And that is like a thing that in small business we don't get to think about very often. And so the more I read that book, the more it helped me understand, because I'm just like a lazy dude and I don't want to work very hard. Like I'm never a guy who's just gonna like out grind or like outwork. I want to be like smarter, and like when you build a business that like meets a group of people's needs better than everybody else's, and then you find efficiency, so you can charge more, and generally you're more efficient. So like it's a win-win for your net profit. And so I would say understanding Michael Porter, game changing book.
You want to go number 2
And
and
then
3?
yeah, I would say How to Win Friends and Influence People is a book that I read. Try to read it every year.
Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, I think that book. I'm not naturally good at that. The concepts that it teaches, and so I have to like keep going back to it. Um, and then let's see. I just finished a book. I'm almost done with a book called "Chop Wood and Carry Water." It's a friend of mine referred it to me. It's a short book. It's very easy to read, and it's just about like glorifying and focusing on the process in life, and like outcomes just come. And it's like it can't be real story. If it is, I'm like shocked. But like it's a story that they use to highlight this concept of the guy wants to be a samurai, and he goes to Japan to like work with this guy, and like the samurai archer, and like all they do is chop wood and carry water every day for like a long period of time. And the guy's like, if you want to get good at this, like you have to be able to chop wood and carry water every day first. And just this idea of like you like focus on and embrace the process always, because you can't guarantee outcomes.
I love that. Yeah, it says the subtitle of the book is How to Fall in Love with the Process of Becoming Great. That's awesome. Sounds like a great
It is a book that I also read and went, oh shit, like I need to read this every year, because I am not great at focusing on like in some ways I am, but also I think it's natural to like want to, especially when you get some success, to like keep wanting to focus on outcomes.
Yeah, and I mean that I've been talking a lot with my wife about we have 4 kids, and it's so tempting. You now have a crying 2-month-old, or maybe not that crying of a 2-month-old, but it's so tempting to be like, and I've heard people talk about this is just like, oh, when we'll take the kids to Disney, or we'll go on that trip once they're like, 8 or 9 years old, and you're just like waiting and hoping that they get older faster. And it's like, you're just like, it just the like I've heard so many people say it, and it's so obvious if you just pause to think about it, but like you realize that it's going to be like that, and you're going to be like, man, I just wish that I could go back to the days of the kids making a mess. And so anyways, it's just and that's with family stuff, but same thing in business. Like, I don't know about you, but it's not like it's not like we've made it or done anything crazy. We're still working and having fun and growing and everything. But it's like, I think back to 10 years ago when we bought like a office space with a marketing company I was running at the time. And we had, 6 millennials working in this shop trying to like make it work, and that we were pitching in people. And it's like, man, it was just like, those were awesome. We were struggling, but we were in the struggle, and having fun and everything. It's like to wish, or the idea that at some point you're just going to like have like sit on the beach and drink margaritas. Like, just put yourself there, be like, how long does that actually last? Like a week tops. And then you're like, what's the next mountain I'm going to climb, you know? And so I feel like for me, it's like anytime that you're feeling a little bit burned out, it's like, all right, just take yourself to like pretend, think through deeply, meditate on like, okay, I'm going to go on a vacation right now, and then pretty soon in 24 hours or 72 or 1 week, I'm going to be like, man, this kind of sucks, because life is not like, it's all about having a good, fun struggle. Who wants to talk to the guy at the party that's like, yeah, I've done nothing, just been hanging out in my yacht and doing some swan dives into the water. It's just like, that's not interesting. It's not fun, and it doesn't make you feel good.
Not human,
So yeah,
right?
you want
It's
the
not
grind.
human.
Yeah. And a mixture of all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I talk to my wife all the time. Like like this life is beyond good. Like I cannot believe our life right now. And I'm like, and like, it's just like, hey, like remember, like focus on this. This is awesome. Life will always have problems. Like that is literally the definition of life. Like there will always be a struggle, but hopefully the struggle we are in like bears fruit
Yeah.
and is like satisfying. And like, I think the essence of that book is like, you got to learn to love the struggle, because that is what life is. And like the idea that we want comfort is, it's cool, but like comfort kills humans. Like biology needs stress.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Movie recommendation.
Uh, I I'm not a big movie person, but the movie I never want to see a movie twice usually,
Mm.
but um, I in high school we randomly rented it, but Boondock Saints is a movie that I've seen many times and I would like gladly watch again.
I totally forgot about Boondock Saints. I have seen that one time in college.
I just think it's such a funny interest. Like Bob Marley is so good, um, and Willem Dafoe, and like it's just a great. I don't know. It brings me joy.
Yeah, William Dafoe is that's the Green Goblin. Um, yeah, that's awesome. Good one. And if people want to get in touch with you, what is your recommendation on how they best do that?
Send me a message on Instagram, um, ZK Painting on Instagram. That's like the best way. Or you could text me.
Awesome.
My
Is there
number's
any?
401
Oh, sorry, I interrupted
You're
you. Go ahead.
401-935-8702.
Awesome. And is there any painting events or things that you are going to in the near future that people can see you at or go to?
The Paint Contractors Association, the PCA, does the conference that we met at. That's the one I go to every year.
The expo.
So
And
yeah,
this year it's in
the
Denver,
expo.
right?
It's in Denver.
Sweet. Well, yeah, Zach, super fun chatting. Thanks for taking the time to come on, and love seeing all the stuff that you're doing in the painting world, and hearing about the social media things that we should all be leveraging to the extent that we want to leverage them. So yeah, thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show, and also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.